The morning I found a letter demanding $500,000 in back HOA fees, I was standing on the deck of a lakefront cabin that legally hasn't belonged to any association since 1974. The sun was just rising over Mirror Lake, turning the water into molten gold, the kind of peaceful dawn a retired man like me moves out here to enjoy. No neighbors, no traffic, and especially no HOA for at least a mile and a half in any direction. Yet there it was, an envelope so stark white it almost glowed, thick enough to hold a legal threat, stamped in red, urgent, $500,000 due immediately. Signed, the Mirror Lakeshores Conservancy. Inside, a neatly typed letter informed me that I owed 25 years of lake maintenance fees, shoreline usage assessments, and dock preservation contributions, and that failure to pay could result in immediate foreclosure and seizure of my waterfront access. I stared at that letter, the ridiculous $500,000 threat sitting between my fingers like a bad punchline, and one thought hit me like a stone dropped into still water. Someone isn't just after my money. They're trying to steal my shoreline on paper. I didn't react right away. When you're 62 and retired, you learn the value of stillness, especially when something unbelievable lands in your hands. I spent 35 years working in water rights investigations, everything from dam compliance to illegal shoreline construction. I can spot a fraudulent claim from 3 counties away, and this wasn't just fraudulent. It was confident. Too confident. Whoever wrote this really believed, they could bully me into handing over $500,000. But before I started sharpening my pitchfork, I needed to go back to where it all started, the day I bought this cabin. It was 2 years earlier, on a late summer afternoon when the lake looked like polished steel and smelled like pine needles warming under the sun. I'd driven out from the city after finally deciding I wanted something the HOA-ridden suburbs could never give me again. Quiet. Real quiet. The kind of quiet that feels like the world is giving you a second chance. The seller, an older man named Walter, met me at the bottom of the gravel drive. "Son," he told me, pointing at the water, "this place has fed my family more peace than food. No HOA ever touched it. Never will." I didn't just take his word for it. I went through every record I could get my hands on before buying. Plat maps, county filings, historic lake district borders, even the 1974 shoreline survey the state did after the flood that reshaped the northern bank. Every document agreed this cabin, this dock, this entire half-acre wedge carved into the lake shore, was not, and had never been, under any association's jurisdiction. And I bought it free and clear, no mortgage, no liens, no pending assessments. So, why did this association think they had a claim to it now? I went inside and set the letter on my kitchen table, brewed a pot of coffee, and more out of professional curiosity than anything, dialed the number printed at the bottom of the notice. "Thank you for calling the Mirror Lakeshores Conservancy." A syrupy recorded voice chirped. "This isn't a mistake," I muttered, feeling the cabin shift from refuge to battleground. "This is a strategy." Suddenly, the peaceful man who moved here to fish at sunrise was gone. In his place stood the investigator I used to be. 3 days later, I got my answer, though not the one I expected. The mail truck pulled up at noon. I stepped outside as the mailman handed me a thick, bulging envelope with no return address. He raised a brow and said, "They sure like sending you stuff, huh?" I didn't understand what he meant until I saw the corner of the envelope. The same red stamp, the same fake urgency. Final notice. Lakefront boundary adjustment. I tore it open right there on the porch. Inside was a glossy, color-printed map, new and overwhelmingly incorrect. It claimed, "Updated shoreline boundary adopted 2018." In bold red ink, a massive new border stretched well beyond the original subdivision. It curved around the lake like a snake slithering across public land until it swallowed my property whole. My dock was marked in bright red letters, "Conservancy Managed Shoreline Access." I felt my blood pressure rise, not because the map was wrong. It wasn't even a good forgery, but because it was so confidently bold. The next morning, I drove into town with the forged map burning in my pocket. At the county clerk's office, a young clerk named Ethan frowned when I asked for the most recent official HOA boundary records. "They don't typically file updates here unless it involves easements or public access," he noted. "Exactly why I'm here," I replied, placing the map between us. "If there's one thing a lifetime of chasing water rights fraud teaches you, It's this. Paper lies. But real records don't. That map is a forgery. I need you to help me prove it. He carefully unfolded the fake map, squinting. I don't recognize this format. I pointed to the red lines. That's because it's a forgery. He hesitated, then connected the USB scanner, fed the forged map into it, and pulled up the property's window. His eyes widened. Created June 12, 2018. Device name, MLS Office Printer 03. Network, Mirror Lakeshores Conservancy. Location tag, Lakeside Administrative Center. He looked up at me, face pale. This was made at the HOA office. I know, I said. Now it's just nice to have proof. Ethan swallowed hard, then nodded. Sir, I've actually seen something like this before. We had 2 other lakefront owners come in last year. They said the Conservancy tried to claim their shoreline, but they just moved. Of course they did, I muttered. Bullies count on silence. Just then, an older gentleman walked in, suspenders, a faded fishing hat, carrying a thick leather folio stuffed with rolled maps. Name's Howard Lane, he said, sticking out his hand. Retired county surveyor. Drew half the maps in this building back when people still cared about doing things right. He took one look at the forged map. Well, I'll be damned, he said, letting out a disgusted laugh. Amateur hour. This thing's as fake as a $3 trout. Howard confirmed the red line had no legal standing, no legs, no spine, no brain. It's a fantasy. A cold, satisfying weight lifted off my chest. Howard immediately wrote a notarized statement confirming the map violated every mapping regulation in the county. That woman running the Conservancy, Patricia Monroe, Howard warned. She's been itching to find some poor soul she thinks is weak enough to steamroll. I smiled, cold and sharp. She picked the wrong old man. I folded the forged map, slipped Howard's statement into my folder, and snapped the binder shut. Now, I said calmly, now I take this to the sheriff, and if he won't act, I'll find someone who will. That afternoon, I pulled out a red marker and outlined my real property boundary on their fake map. Then I wrote across the bottom in big block letters, not now, not ever. Because if they wanted to draw me into their imaginary world, I was going to drag them right back into reality. The next morning started with a sound I knew too well, a sharp metallic clank. Not the wind, not the lake. This was man-made, deliberate, a sound with intention. I reached the hill overlooking my dock and stopped dead. Blocking the narrow trail stood a brand new steel barricade, 6 feet wide, drilled directly into my soil. Heavy chains wrapped across it, locked by a grapefruit-sized padlock. Bolted to the center was a shiny aluminum sign, property of Mirror Lakeshores. Lakefront access suspended. It wasn't fear, it was a blade of cold anger sliding right under my ribs. They had trespassed, committed vandalism, and interfered with property access. Criminal charges on any day of the week. I documented everything, every bolt, every chain, every angle. Then I called the sheriff's office. When the deputy finally arrived, he approached with the slow, uninterested walk of a man who'd already made up his mind. What seems to be the problem today, sir? I motioned toward the trail. Someone from the HOA trespassed on my land and installed an illegal barricade. He studied the barricade, scratching his chin. Well, looks like an HOA matter. What HOA issue? I have county maps, surveyor testimony, and this, I held out the fake map, is a crime. They fabricated a legal document to create that claim. He sighed. Sir, until a judge rules otherwise, this is a civil dispute. I can't remove their property or interfere with their claim. Take it to court. He drove away, leaving the barricade standing smugly in the sunlight. Fine, I muttered to myself. If the law won't move for me, I'll move the damn law. I called the local tow truck operator, a bearded man who enjoys chaos. HOA trouble? He asked. Yep. Want it gone quiet? Let's be surgical. 10 minutes and one clean snap of his bolt cutter later, the entire barricade tore free from the ground, posts, screws, anchors, and all. That afternoon, I set up my own defenses, 3 motion-activated cameras, one hidden high in a pine tree, a solar floodlight rigged to blast anyone within 10 feet, all footage backed up automatically to a cloud server. I wanted them to know I had it. But the Conservancy wasn't done playing dirty. I heard a soft rip of tape being peeled off a roll from outside. I ran to the door just in time to see a silver SUV speeding down my drive. Taped dead center on my gate post was another large brown envelope. Inside was a fake legal notice, a summons to court, citing a specific case number and a presiding judge. I called the county clerk's office again. I need to verify a court case number. The clerk, a woman named Marlene, typed, paused, and sighed. Sir, that number doesn't exist. In fact, none of our civil cases run in that numbering format. Thank you, I said. One more thing. Who is the presiding judge currently assigned to lakefront property disputes? That would be Judge Hawthorne, she replied. Why? And Judge Lance J. Holloway? I asked, reading the name on the fake summons. A longer pause this time. Sir, Judge Holloway passed away several years ago. His name wouldn't appear on any current case. I hung up, and what came out of me wasn't anger. It was laughter. The kind of laughter that comes when you realize you're dealing with someone so catastrophically inept they're practically handing you the rope to hang them with. I realized the HOA had just committed a new crime. Full-blown impersonation of a deceased judge. I grabbed my truck keys, slid the evidence folder under my arm, and drove straight to the sheriff's department. They took the documents with gloved hands and began scanning them under an ink pattern analyzer. Halfway through, the forensic expert said the words I'd been waiting for. Sir, this isn't just fake. This is criminally fake. I'll need to open a case file immediately. The next morning, I called an old colleague of mine from my water rights days. You need someone who doesn't blink when HOA boards try to play government, he chuckled. Call Naomi Chun. She eats fraudulent associations for breakfast. Naomi moved fast. Within 24 hours, she had filed for an injunction to legally bar the Conservancy from stepping foot on my property and scheduled a meeting with the county prosecutor. The assistant district attorney, Conrad Weaver, greeted us. Mr. Greer, the map is unequivocally forged. The fake summons uses the name of a deceased judge. That alone is grounds for felony forgery. And fourth, he said, sliding a document across the table, we subpoenaed the HOA's financial records this morning. It's bad. They've collected tens of thousands of dollars in shoreline assessments with no legal basis. Not a penny of it went to lake maintenance. Instead, we found purchases for vacations, private dinners, car leases, even a spa membership. So what's next? I asked. Tonight we file for a warrant. Tomorrow morning, if approved, we place the HOA president under arrest. That evening, as the sky turned purple, my phone dinged. Motion detected. Northern Ridge. I opened the feed. The infrared image showed a shadowy figure pacing near the edge of my land. It was Patty Monroe. Another notification buzzed. Motion detected. Western Slope. A second figure, bigger, bulkier, carrying a duffel bag. She wasn't trying to change documents. She was trying one final desperate act before the arrest landed in the morning, to create chaos, destroy evidence, or provoke me into a confrontation. I called Naomi first. Patty's on my land. She's not alone. Stay inside, she ordered. Call the sheriff. Now. I hung up and dialed the sheriff's emergency number. I stepped back inside, locked the door, and activated every floodlight on the perimeter. The entire property lit up like a football field. There they were, Patty and a man I'd never seen before, both frozen like deer in the headlights. The accomplice dropped the duffel bag, bolt cutters, spray paint, a crowbar, and what looked like a stack of blank legal forms. As the first siren wailed in the distance, Patty turned toward the trees, panic twisting her face. The sirens cut through the night like blades of cold steel. Deputy cruisers flooded the gravel road, cutting off their escape. A spotlight pinned Patty in a beam so bright she stumbled to her knees, hands raised instinctively. Her accomplice was tackled near the tree-line. Patty Monroe, president of the Mirror Lake Shores Conservancy, sat in the dirt with her hands zip-tied behind her back and mascara streaked down her cheeks. The law had finally caught up to arrogance. The real reckoning came 4 days later at the special HOA board meeting. The parking lot was overflowing. Inside, residents filled every seat, whispering about seized board members and frozen bank accounts. Ladies and gentlemen, Naomi began, her heels clicking like punctuation marks. The Mirror Lake Shores Conservancy is no longer operating under legitimate authority. All liens filed in the past 12 years are under review. I stepped forward beside her. A hush fell. The fake map, the forged summons, the illegal fees, the threats, the trespassing, the intimidation. It ends now. Naomi gestured toward the two remaining board members. These individuals will cooperate fully in identifying every fraudulent fee and every homeowner affected. It was time for the final blow. I stepped forward. I proposed the dissolution of the Mirror Lake Shores Conservancy. Like a fuse finding flame, a single voice shouted, "Second," then another and another. Before long, the room roared with approval. The vote was unanimous. The HOA, Patty's Empire, died right there in that room. The final court hearing came 6 months later. Patty, now thinner and far less glamorous, appeared in an orange jumpsuit and shackles. The judge sentenced her to 10 years for multiple counts of criminal forgery, fraud, and theft. When she was led away, she looked at me once, only once, with a mixture of bitterness and disbelief, as if she still couldn't understand how she'd lost. Bullies rarely do. And every now and then, when the light hits the water just right, I see the reflection of that old barricade. And I remember the night justice finally stepped onto my shoreline. It's the proof that you stood your ground when someone tried to redraw your life on paper. Never let fear sign for you. Never hand over what's yours because someone speaks with confidence but stands on lies. And never underestimate your own voice, because sometimes that's all it takes to stop an entire empire of fraud. Let me know in the comments where you're watching from, and if you ever had to stand your ground against someone who pushed too far. And if you love these real HOA justice stories, don't forget to subscribe. More unbelievable tales are coming.